say that, hey man, I have this idea, I would like you to write it. Like I do find that fine. It's fine. Like I would never take creative control over something like that. I will merely give him what he's asking for. But I think where I connected with you on, it's just when you are trying to write honestly, and I don't think people know, like when they hear that you're a writer or a wannabe writer or something, or you're doing a film, I think that there is this idea that it's just something you go home and you bang out and there's no consequences. Doesn't feel like the right word, but like just how emotionally draining it can be when you are writing from your heart. And I gotta say, for you, like, or I guess I'm asking, did it get super hard for you to continue to really just kind of reach inward and rip out your heart and kind of put it on display for all to see? Was that something that you do easily? Is it something where you like, hey, I had to take a week back or take a week off and just be like, it's too much for me? Any of that?
That's a very large question.
Yep.
So, sorry, listeners, that's it for the day. No, but I just, I can answer it. It might take a little bit. We may end up doing a two-parter.
Would love to.
Because what you're talking about, you're kind of getting at like writing in this macro sense of going from I want to write something to I have written something to shit, now I have to write something again. And there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of insecurity, but it's very shifting. So I'm going to try to do my best to stay on track with this. When I started writing A Ghost Waits, and we're not going to get into spoilers, but I will say, like, we're going to talk about depression and suicide a little bit, guys. And if you struggle with that, you should maybe stop listening, because my life is largely defined by those two things as well as anxiety. I have struggled with all of them for a very, very, very long time, and I continue to struggle with them. So when it came time to make this, like I said, MacLeod and I had just spent a year trying to make something. So we got really close, and when it didn't happen, it hurt. It hurt a lot. Like, I went home, tail between my legs, just like, I don't know what's next. And I realized that I was feeling like an existential mistake. Like I didn't have a place in the world. And so I started thinking, okay, literally the only thing I really know is that I need to make a movie. Or that I want to make a movie, and I need to see if I can make a good one. Because if I can't make a good movie, I don't really have a backup plan. And like, maybe I'll just take myself off the board because I'm taking up space that somebody else could be using. So that was kind of going through my head when I played, my friends had played this video game that provided half the inspiration for the movie, and then I saw a webcomic that provided the other half. And I'd had this idea for a haunted house movie, and we had met an investor when we were trying to make the previous film, and he had remained really excited about investing and making something. I was talking to our mutual friend, Nick Thurkettle, and Nick said, he's like, hey, how's Adam doing? And Nick said, he's good. He just had some weird haunted house idea. And so this is MF Thomas, the investor, calls, and, I told him what I knew of the story, and he said, that sounds good. I'll put in X amount of dollars. And I realized, like, okay, you know what? Like, let's stop. I'd written, like, some years back, I'd written a script that people liked, but we couldn't raise enough money. So then I went and wrote a smaller script that people liked, but we still couldn't raise enough money. And I just kept doing that. So finally, I was like, screw it. I have this. My mom has said that, like, when we have a number, to let her know, and if she can match it, she will. So I called her and told her the number, and they matched it. And suddenly I had a budget. And it wasn't a big one, but it was just like, okay, I have some money with which to make a movie. And one thing I know is that it cannot be the excuse for the movie being bad. Like money is important, but it's not everything.
That is really good. I hope you listeners heard what he just said. That is on some level profound, my friend.
So like, it became like, okay, it's the spark that starts the fire, but then ingenuity will add more kindling and resourcefulness. And, MacLeod and I were already really good friends and very close. And we knew that we wanted to work together. It was through this process that we became best friends and like the closest. But so, suddenly there was money, and I was like, okay, well, now I have to write the thing. And I'm accustomed to taking 3 years to write a script because nobody gives a shit if somebody they've never heard of is writing a spec script in a basement somewhere.
You got that right.
But suddenly there's like people looking over my shoulders. I'm like, oh man, I got to do this. So I would just sit down, and I started thinking a lot about what's interesting about Ghost Story. Like, okay, what do we know? What's like the language of it? And once I kind of started setting a few milestones of like, okay, I want to explore this, I want to explore that. And then, it was just a matter of like, you sit down and you like, what's interesting? What do I want to talk about? And what is something that no one else is saying? What is something that I don't see anywhere else? Because I may never get to make a second movie. So if I only ever get to make this one, like, I want it to count. I want to make something that even if I live another 30 years and never make another movie, I'm still proud. I still made the decisions I wanted to make. So, writing and talking about not feeling like I have a place in the world, the J.J. Abrams has a special thanks on the movie because he gave me a piece of advice years ago. If you want to see something, you have to have faith that you're not alone in the world. And if you want to see something, somebody else wants to see it too. So I thought, okay, if I need a movie that tells me that I'm not alone in the world, I bet other people need this too. And so I have to give myself the like specific hug that I need, and then hope for the best. But because that was the thing, and because we were making it for such a small amount of money, I never had to worry about the 4 quadrants. I never had to really worry about getting this huge audience. So it just became, let's do something that no one else is doing. Let's make our punk album. Let's make our first, Jay-Z's first album, Reasonable Doubt. Like, let's let everything inflect this. And so in the writing process, that was kind of the North Star. And then, you get on the set and you're making changes, and you're getting asked a million questions a day. But because it all comes from this very genuine place, it all comes from my heart. When I'm asked a question, I basically just run it past my heart. My heart's like, that one. I'm like, okay, cool. So, like that gets you through kind of production, and we did 2 sets of pickups over a couple of years. And that, that means like we're going back and reimagining the first act and reimagining certain scenes because either the point that we made wasn't well made or wasn't the right way to make it, that kind of stuff. And so, but, we never had any prep. We never had a script read. We never had a shot list, and then when it was pickup, it was just MacLeod and me in that house. Just like, what do you think about this? All right. Let's try that, see how it works. And so you're kind of going through all this. And now I find myself at a place as this is winding down, I'm writing what will probably be the next movie. I had an idea. Some people really like it. We've got some interest. So I wrote a first draft. I forgot to put a second act in it. Now I'm fixing that. But so there's this like, I was joking the other day, like I flitter between exhaustion and dread where I want to talk about Ghost Waits with everyone who wants to talk about it because it's a miracle that this happened. But I also kind of pile my plate high with obligations for that and then don't have time or the energy to write. And suddenly I get like 3 days along and I'm like, wait, why haven't I done this? And I'll get mad at myself. Like no matter what I'm doing, I'll get mad at myself that I'm not doing something else. And I'm starting to like, no, give yourself time. Like just make a day. Like today, I have a few calls about a Ghost Wait. And then tomorrow I'll work on something else. But I've had to learn that. It's like feeling your way through a dark room. Nobody ever told me how to modulate creative work. and how to balance all of this. So, and if I've learned freaking anything from this process, it's to trust my instincts, which was one hell of a lesson I never used to. I was like, what? Why would I listen to what I think? I'm an idiot. So, yeah, like, I've said this elsewhere, but like this movie like made me a better person, and it made me the happiest I've ever been. And so much of that is because it taught me to trust myself and taught me to have faith in both myself and those around me. You don't get a best friend like MacLeod Andrews and then not learn something from that. Like, MacLeod is a force for good in the universe.
I mean, he really is. And speaking with him, I just think he's so profoundly talented. It's not even funny. Like, and in talking with him, I don't know that I could picture anyone else nailing or actually having talked to him. I don't want anybody else in that role. I can't envision anyone else in that role. And I think just based on your guys' friendship alone, like, it had to help in putting that character on screen. Like, because, like, if it was just a traditional, like, he was hired in and you guys didn't know each other, I don't know that it plays as well without that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, so he and I lived together for a little bit out in Santa Monica. And one week we were working on his acting reel. And so we were just watching a bunch of stuff that he'd been in. And because he is a formidably talented performer, he would get cast in roles where they were crazy or they were losing their mind or something like that, because that's really hard to do. But when you're just watching that, like, in succession, I remember telling him, like, why does everyone want to see you go crazy? Like, I want to see you fall in love and save the world and all this other stuff. So when this opportunity presented itself, I was just like, oh my God, I get to write something that shows my best friend's toolbox. Like, I get to show the world what I know MacLeod can do. And I mean, we had our North American premiere at Screamfest out in LA last October. It was very important for them to do an in-person event. So it was a drive-in festival, which is how we got to see the movie at a drive-in, which was amazing.
So awesome. When he told me that, I was so jealous that was how you.
It was incredible.
Oh my gosh!
And it was also the first time it felt like a movie instead of a project that I was working on, which was really nice. But the last night of the festival was awards night, and I went and part of it was just like, I got a pretty good feeling that MacLeod's gonna win, and I want to be there if that happens. So yeah, we flew out, put ourselves up, like, got an Airbnb, like, just did all this stuff to be there for this. And so sure enough, awards night gets going. I'm parked right up front by where the awards are being handed out. MacLeod's parked in the back, and they get around to Best Actor. MacLeod Andrews, A Ghost Waits, and like, I am screaming before I'm out of the car. I grab my mask. I'm just like hooting and hollering. It takes him a minute to get up there, so it's just me going, wah! And he gives a speech, and like, I'm just crying. I'm just like so proud, because like, the world is seeing what I saw, and it's incredible. And then of course, like, he comes back and we're like sitting there dancing, and we missed what they said, and they said, A Ghost Waits. And I was like, oh, I think we won something. You just go. And I like walk over, just like, hey, I'm so sorry, I missed the first part of this. What's this for? And they said Best Picture. And I was like, holy shit! And that's how my very first acceptance speech began.
A little bit easier for you to deal with than the first Q&A that you had in Glasgow, which you actually I found it to be I don't know, like, it kind of confirmed a lot of when I saw you on some level lose it right before the Q&A started, or actually as the Q&A started. I guess I don't want to say that it added more to the film, but it made it that whole, I didn't know if I felt or if I'm alone in what I'm saying. Like, there's just, I'm so glad that you guys both got this